Judge Smith, thank you for sitting down with us this morning for the Young Lawyers Section Mentor Minutes. If you would, just give us a little bit of your background in the field of law.
All right, Matt. My name is Judge Kim Smith, and I've been a circuit judge in Washington County and Madison County for the past 26 years. Before that, I was the prosecuting attorney for 8 years, from 1979 through 1986. And before that, I was a deputy prosecuting attorney for 3.5 years. And before that, I was a law clerk for 1.5 years or so for Judge, well, then it was prosecuting attorney Malin Gibson. And so I ran for prosecutor when he ran for judge, and was fortunate enough to win that, and then ran for circuit judge when Judge Jameson retired in 1986, and was fortunate enough to win 2 races for that judgeship. So that's in a nutshell my background. Of course, I went here at the University of Arkansas for my law degree and graduated in '75.
Okay. So you've had quite the career in public service. What would you say is the most rewarding part of that career?
Well, I think the most rewarding part is being able to fairly treat people in court and give the citizens an opportunity to have a fair trial, to have their disputes tried before a court of law, either before a jury or a judge, depending on the case. It was also rewarding when I was the prosecuting attorney, and you could help victims of crime receive either restitution or some retribution, if as the case may be. I had, when I was my first year as the elected prosecuting attorney, I was 30 years old, and I think I tried 5 murder cases that first year, 2 of whom killed John Hussey, a Springdale policeman, back in the 70s, but we didn't, well, it was in 74, and then we finally caught the fellows and tried them in 75, but I was a young prosecutor, wet behind the ears, and you know, a very serious offense, murdering our police officer. And those that was rewarding to get those convictions. I was disappointed James Ray Renton, the trigger man, didn't receive the death penalty. It was 11-1, and it takes unanimous verdict in Arkansas by the jury to get the death penalty, and so one juror wouldn't vote for the death penalty, so he got life without parole. But that first year as prosecutor was probably the most challenging time of my career, with all those murder cases, and I practically lived down at the office. In fact, I took a office in the old courthouse up in the on the 4th floor there on the corner offices, and moved that murder case file up there, and just spent a lot of my time up in that office to get away from the distractions of the office. Then when I was elected judge, I had done the criminal law for 11.5 years or so, and so the judgeship I was elected to was the 2nd Division, which was the civil court. Back then, Judge Cummings was in Division 1 until Judge Gibson took that over. So Judge Gibson was in Division 1, which was always the criminal division, and once we got a 2nd Division of circuit court, then that was the civil division and of circuit court. And of course at that time we still had 2 chancellors that heard the divorces, domestic relations, foreclosures, etc. So I had to learn all the civil law, which I'd done a few cases, 1983 cases, in defending the county when they'd be sued by inmates, but other than that I didn't know too much about the civil law. So I got a copy of Brill's book on damages and read it from cover to cover a few times, and got the rules of, studied up some more on the rules of evidence. I knew them in relation to criminal cases quite a bit, and of course the rules of civil procedure I didn't know them from Adams off Fox, and so I got a copy of the rules of civil procedure and read them and tried to educate myself on these civil cases. But I've really enjoyed them. I've been fortunate to be able to serve for 26 years. But those are probably the most challenging cases I had.
Okay.
Or challenging events, I guess.
As a young lawyer, what do you recall as your biggest or maybe your most memorable mistake?
Well, it might not have been a true mistake. You know, coming in the prosecutor's office, it's real easy to call everything black and white. You know, by golly, he did it, and he needs to pay for it. He needs to do some time for it. And I think it took me a while to understand that, you know, there's two sides to every coin. And as a prosecutor, I found myself maybe not being as one-sided as I used to be when I first was in the prosecutor's office. I found out there are families that these defendants have, and there's other circumstances that you know, someone ought to consider in trying to reach a plea recommendation in a case, rather than just look strictly at the crime. Of course, any violent crimes, murder cases, armed robberies, those sorts of things, you know, they were going to the penitentiary no matter what there was, what else there was involved. But those are such serious crimes. But I think just recognizing that there's some gray areas, that everything's not black and white, and the same way with the legal cases. You know, you find the cases on your side of an issue and think, well, I've got this. This is a cinch. You know, this is locked up. Here's my cases, and you never quite find one exactly on point, and the other side can find some to a little bit on their side, and it's you know, it's a toss-up, and the judge is in a position that he or she's got to make that decision on which one of these cases do you think more fits this fact situation. So I had to learn that just because you found a case you thought was on all fours, the other side might find one they think's on all fours, and you have to look at the other side.
You've been on the bench for quite a while, and I'm sure you've seen plenty of young lawyers come up for their first appearances and their first trials. What would you say are the most important or most frequent mistakes that you see new lawyers make?
Not quite being prepared enough for their trial. They need to be sure they've talked to their witnesses that they're going to call and know exactly what they're going to say. When I was prosecutor, I told my deputies, I said, you know, we might not win every case, but nobody's going to work harder on this case than we are, because we're not going to lose because we're not as prepared as the other side. So whatever time you need off to go interview witnesses in the field or whatever, then you get out of the office and do it. And I think there's a lot of young people with constraints on time that, you know, don't find that time to go talk to those witnesses and to explore, you know, other areas in their case that may be exposed by cross-examination, that you really need to be ready for those things and be prepared for your trials. If you don't know the answer to procedural matters, go talk to the judge's trial court assistant. I think they've got a kind place in their heart, as I do for young lawyers. I try to help them, you know, without showing any favoritism, but as far as procedures and, you know, how do you pick a jury and how do you do this, or what does the judge want his jury instructions, or when does he want them, or those sorts of things, they can easily talk to the trial court assistant or the court reporter or the judge, you know, that'd be my big piece of advice to young lawyers. Don't be afraid to ask for help, either from the judge's office on procedural matters, another lawyer on your case. If you you know, have questions about it, most of the lawyers are happy to help young lawyers learn the trade. There's a mentoring program through the Arkansas Bar Association that they can certainly seek help through that mechanism also.
Okay. I also know you to be a member of the Fayetteville Rotary Club. And along those lines, what advice would you have for young lawyers with regard to getting involved in their community?
Well, I would encourage them to get involved. They have a lot to offer with their minds and their ability to logically think and to think with a legal mind in some instances when it's required. But and the younger lawyers have a lot of energy to give. And I know they're raising young families, but you know, I think we owe it to society to try to help the community when we can. And you know, the friendships I've made in Rotary over the last 35 years, I just can't put a price on that. And you know, it won't hurt you in your practice. They see you and understand that you're an up-and-coming young lawyer, and you may get some business out of the relationship. But you need to go into it thinking, you know, I'm going to try to help my community and get involved. You know, you can be a member of Rotary or the Lions or Kiwanis, but you're not a real member until you get involved and get active and do things and you know, help fundraisers to support a lot of these nonprofits that we have that help disadvantaged people, and Peace at Home and those sorts of things are excellent organizations too. But I'd encourage them to get involved with that. I'd encourage them also to get involved with the Bar Association and Inns of Court or any other association where there's other lawyers where you can meet with them. I think the discovery disputes that we have are not as many as some places around here, because we do know most each other, the lawyers that is, although it's getting more and more that you don't. But you know, the more you get to know another lawyer, the less likely you're going to get in a big fight, I think, over discovery or any other matter, and the easier it is to settle a case and to talk with them if you know them.
Well, along those lines, what do you see as the trend in professionalism amongst lawyers, and what would you suggest to do to improve or better that relationship?
Well, you know, Warren Burger in the 1980s saw the trend in civility going way down among lawyers. And that caused him to help organize the Inns of Court to teach both professionalism and civility. You know, when I think of professionalism, you act in a professional manner, you're going to be civil. But if you're speaking strictly on your profession as a lawyer, you can do that without being civil to the other lawyers. But the trend, to answer your question, is I think the civility is taking a hit right now, and that these things like the Inns of Court, where they try to teach congeniality and civility and understand that you're not supposed to, you know, it's not good to be the Rambo lawyer, as we call them, that's going in there and just take no prisoners, and I'm not going to agree to anything. That it won't curry your favor with judges, I'll tell you that. If you're obstinate, you know, you object to everything, you file all these motions, and you know, if you keep filing motions that are frivolous or have no merit, number one, you may get a Rule 11, or number two, that you're going to make a judge look suspect at everything you file in his or her court if you repeatedly do that. But you need to be civil to the courts and to your fellow attorneys.
What is the one piece of advice, if you had a young lawyer standing in front of you, that you would give him or her?
I think what I mentioned earlier is don't be afraid to ask for help. The lawyers will help you, the court staff will help you. You know, just don't be embarrassed or too afraid to ask. We all had to start out, and you know, I think you'll find that you'll receive the help you need if you just will go seek it.
Well, thank you very much, Judge Smith. We appreciate you doing this for us.
You bet, Matt.